Okay, we're at 6 o'clock and the YouTube is streaming, so I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome to our Harbour East Community Council meeting for tonight. We do have quorum. Councillor Kent may be joining us in a little bit. We don't have regrets, right? No, okay. So I'll begin with the land acknowledgement. I acknowledge that the Halifax municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Okay. Next up, approval of the minutes from December 7th, February 1st, and February 20th. Moved by Councillor Mancini. Seconded by Councillor Hensby. All those in favor? Aye. Minutes are done. Approval of the order of business, additions and deletions. Ms. Clerk?
Yes, Chair Austin. There are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office this evening.
Okay. Anything from members of council? Would someone like to move the agenda then?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Kent, arriving just in time. Second by Councillor Purdy. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Just in time for the important business. Business arising out of the minutes, we have none. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare tonight? Just a conflict with Councillor Mancini. That might be universal. Motions of reconsideration, none. Motions of rescission, none. Consideration of deferred business, none. We have no tabled matters. So that brings us to 10.1.1, our first public hearing of the night. This would be the substantive amendments to a development agreement at 95 Montebello Drive. So thank you everyone for joining us today for the public hearing. The process, we will start with the staff presentation and questions of clarification stemming from that presentation, and then the applicant will be given an opportunity to present. After that, we will go into the full public hearing. Speakers, anyone who wants to speak at that time can come forward. They can participate for a maximum of 5 minutes. The instructions are to please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to me, the chair. The clerk will hold up a yellow sign. Oh, got your yellow.
I show and tell.
Show and tell. Our high technology here. Yellow sign means you'll have 30 seconds, and then red, time up. And so we'll start with the speakers list when we get there, and I'll then call 3 times once we've gone through that list just to see if there's anyone else who wants to speak on any of the matters. Okay, so let's get started with the staff presentation. Let's take it away.
Good evening, Council, and good evening, everyone. My name is Taylor McIntosh, and I'm a planner with the Planning Applications Group, and I'll be providing the staff presentation for Plan App 2023-00335, and I will just note that this was previously referred to as Case 24571. And this is an application made directly by the property owner of 95 Montebello Drive in Dartmouth, and the request is to expand the uses permitted by an existing development agreement. This is considered a substantive amendment, meaning that this is a change to the existing development agreement that requires Community Council approval. The site in question is located in Dartmouth on the corner of Montebello Drive and Breeze Drive, and the boundaries of the lot are shown here in red. In terms of neighborhood context, this is primarily a residential area. There are 2 multiple unit dwellings behind the site. However, most of the surrounding area features single unit or semi-detached homes. There is an existing neighborhood convenience store on site with 2 angles of street view images shown here. Some may know this as the previous Cascade Variety Store. Today it is used as a convenience store, takeout, and includes a pet essentials shop. Another note regarding context, when you zoom out to the surrounding area, it remains mainly residential in nature. The area follows a pretty typical suburban subdivision pattern, with commercial areas being found only at the fringes. Nearby, there is the Main Street commercial area and a node of commercial on Waverly Road. However, these are outside of walkable range of most homes. To speak plainly, this site is in a sea of residential uses. For general context regarding planning in the HRM, we have 3 levels of planning documents that we work under. There is an overarching regional plan, which is at a high level, guiding where population growth and investment in services should occur. From the regional plan, we've developed community level plans, which at a more detailed level outline where, how, and which types of developments may occur. Some uses may be identified as being allowed only after community consultation and council approval through the planning applications process, which is the process that this application is being considered under. There is also the land use bylaw level, which through zoning specifies uses that can be approved without going to council or seeking feedback from the public, which is often referred to as the as of right process. For this application, the underlying zone is the R3 zone in the Dartmouth Land Use Bylaw, which is a multiple family residential zone. The R3 zone does not permit commercial uses as of right. However, the existing commercial use of the property is permitted by a development agreement, which is enabled through the community plan. Policy C2 of the Dartmouth Secondary Municipal Planning Strategy enables council to consider permitting neighborhood convenience uses on properties in the residential planning designation through development agreements. The existing development agreement, which originates in the 1980s, permits a neighborhood convenience store. The applicant has requested flexibility in how the existing building can be used, providing that in the current day, keeping a typical neighborhood convenience store viable can be challenging. This request is considered through the planning application process, which includes a review by staff. It has also been advertised to the public as part of public engagement, and a staff report has been submitted to Community Council, who gave notice of motion indicating they are considering the application today. Today's meeting will include the required public hearing, and at the close of the public hearing, typically Council will make a decision, which is then subject to a 14-day appeal period. During staff review, the request was reviewed against enabling policy and other applicable sections of the community plan, which directs any decision on a development agreement to include consideration of several factors, which include compatibility of use, controls to reduce potential incompatibilities, and the adequacy of utilities and services. A key consideration in reviewing this request is that although the enabling policy uses the term neighborhood convenience, which most would associate with a typical needs or corner store type use, the text of the plan provides evidence that this was intended to encompass a larger range of uses than the typical or customary meaning. The community plan provides that this type of use is a minor commercial use that serves a community and includes, quote, outlets such as, but not necessarily limited to, grocery stores, drugstores, barber shops, TV repair shops, etc. Acknowledging that the intent of this policy could be used to enable a wider range of uses that support a neighborhood, staff used the list of uses permitted in the C1 local commercial zone of the Dartmouth Land Use Bylaw as a guide to determining other uses that are compatible at a local scale. Consistent with the C1 zone, the proposed amendment would allow the uses shown here, which include food and grocery stores, local and public offices, personal service shops, restaurants, and veterinary clinics without outdoor runs. A difference from the C1 zone that was introduced in the proposed amendment is that restaurant drive-thrus and drinking establishment uses, which are places that serve alcohol only without food, are excluded to better suit the context of the site. There are no proposed changes to the building or site design. The agreement permits the existing building pursuant to drawings, which are consistent with what you see there today. And so the scale of any new use would be limited by this. There are a few minor changes made to the agreement, which included updating references to applicable engineering requirements, which is standard when amending an agreement of this age, as well as updating commencement and completion of development timeframes. Regarding non-substantives, a non-substantive amendment is a change to an agreement which can be made without a formal public hearing. A development officer or community council could authorize this change by resolution. There are no changes proposed to the non-substantive amendment section of the agreement. However, for awareness, the options that can be considered as non-substantive under existing agreement include extension to commencement or completion of development periods, change to access point, changes to hours of operation, and establishment of a second sign. Public engagement was conducted for this application. The application was advertised to the public using an on-site sign, a page on our website, and a fact sheet mailed out to 118 residents of nearby properties. I was only contacted by one individual. However, their website was viewed by 442 unique viewers. The comment that was received opposed personal service shops and office as a permitted use, indicating that food services were considered more important as there is a need in the area. In conclusion, staff have completed a review of the application against relevant planning policies and recommend that the Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council approve the proposed amending development agreement. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Members of council, are there any questions of clarification? Seeing none, we'll move ahead. The next part of our, well, first we have to open the public hearing, so that's what we'll do now. The first step would be the applicant gets to come forward and present. So that would be Rodney, is it Habib? Habib? Habib. All right, sir, you have 10 minutes.
All right, I'll try to keep it as quick as I can possible. First of all, thank you so much for hearing me and my family out tonight on our dilemma that we face. My name is Rodney Habib. I'm the son of George Habib, the incredible man behind me, best dad in the whole world, and my mother, Sally, who's an incredible mom, and of course, a brother to my sister, Michelle. My family, I just want to pose the dilemma that we face, but first just start with a little about my family because I'm so proud of them. My mother and father immigrated to Canada in 1970. They came from Lebanon as hardworking citizens, and they came from two tiny villages. In those villages, they were born and raised with let's just say imprinted in their DNA was community from the start. In small villages, you go out, you get the water together, you bring it to the homes together. The small shops that are in those communities are supported by those people within those communities. And you don't typically venture out of your village to go to another neighboring shop. So it's always supporting that community, which has been very important to my family. Flash forward to 2000, my father, who a small local entrepreneur, saw a tiny little convenience store up in the top of Montebello that was really run down and lots of gang problems that were there. So dad took it over in 2000 and took a chance on it and brought in the entire family, myself, my sister, my mother, my father, where we all worked in this tiny 1,500 square foot shop. Now, dad, the number one rule he had was we support the community, and in return, the community supports us. So for over a decade, my parents have been serving the community. My mother fed zillions of young children for almost 20 years who have all grown up now. Mayor Savage, Councillor Mancini, MLA Darren Fisher, Andrew Younger, and so on and so forth, who've all, my mother has successfully fed and nourished behind us. There's no conflict of interest here. My family has worked so very hard and took a lot of pride in the community. And for my parents, selling chocolate bars obviously is not the most lucrative business in the entire world, but every penny that they had, they would put to the side to support the local community and rebuilding the fields in the area, supporting our local elementary schools that we've done. And the multiple awards that my family has received, the most honorable award that we are proud of is that HRM presented us with the 2010 Community Award, which was probably one of the biggest achievements that my family had achieved with all of the hard work they put in. And this inspired me. I mean, I thought this was the greatest achievement, like probably better than the Olympics and the gold medal that my father won. And I wanted to be like my father and my mother, who worked very hard. So we were here in 2010 and stood in front of this council with a dream and an idea of how we could nurture the community and grow it even more. And along came that tiny little pet store that you saw there in that drawing that's 450 square feet. What we have achieved with that pet store, because community took a chance on us on a global level, I would need probably 5 days to explain to you. But in quick, when we started the pet store, we brought in the sense of community. And first and foremost, we wanted to support the parks, where my family was able to donate money to Shuby Park to rebuild the map boards, the gazebos that you see there today, the lost and found boxes that you see. That was a community supporting us. And in return, we wanted to support back by supporting the neighborhood park where all the dogs go to, supporting our local shelters, and so on and so forth. And to the point that we started to branch out from our community and support HRM, supporting our local farmers and trying to bring in fresh, whole foods into a pet store, believe it or not, to inspire pet parents to maybe put down the bowls of ultra processed food and bring in whole live foods into their bowls for their pets. In saying that, the achievements that and the growth in growing the community didn't just start here, but it spread throughout the province and then throughout the country. Today, that 450 square foot shop stands as the largest brand following in the entire country, surpassing Tim Hortons and Air Canada and even Canada.com. Because of the chance that you guys took on me and my family. And today we've taken that information, we put it into a book, and for the first time in East Coast history, that book is a #1 New York Times bestseller and a bestseller in 20 languages across the world because the council in front of me took a chance on my family. So today I stand in front of you with a dilemma that we have where we're under a really restricted old amendment. And unfortunately, my mother and father don't do so well at repairing TVs. I know that was one of the limiting things, and I don't think anybody wants my parents also to cut their hair. So we're stuck under very limited resources. Our hope that you would grant us the permission to give us some flexibility to bring something into the neighborhood to inspire the neighborhood, like you did with the pet store, where we can support the community. My father and mother has always employed all of everyone within that community, from the young children today who've grown up to be police officers, fire department workers, and many people today that we see in the city. So that is my hope, that you can help us with this agreement. We live in the community. Of course, the #1 worry that everyone would have is, oh my God, what are you going to do to the community? My family lives a street over. I live a street over. My sister lives 2 houses down from the establishment, and my brother lives 2 houses down. We take pride in that community. And thank you for hearing me out. Hopefully that was under 10 minutes. And that's our dilemma in my family's bio. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It would go to questions of clarification, if there are any, from members of council. Okay, seeing none, we'll now move to the speakers list. Thank you very much. Do we have anyone signed up to speak on this matter tonight?
No one signed up.
No one signed up? Okay, well, I will call 3 times now. Would anybody in attendance tonight like to address council on this matter? Would anybody like to speak tonight? 3rd and final call. Would anyone like to speak tonight? Okay. Moved by Councillor Mancini, second by Councillor Kent. Sorry, I'm just skipping down here because I'm feeling like I'm missing something. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's what I was thinking, David. There's nothing really to rebut, so we can skip that. All right, so all in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye. Okay. The next part would be staff can respond to any speakers, but I don't think we need that either. We're getting a head nods. So it really is council. What's your wish, Councillor Mancini?
Put the motion on the floor.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Put the following motion on the floor that the Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council, 1, approve the proposed amending development agreement, which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated December 18, 2023. And 2, require the amending agreement to be signed by the property owner within 120 days or any extension thereof granted by council, and request the property owner from the date of final approval by council and the other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, which is later. Otherwise, the approval will be void and obligations arising hereunder shall be at the end. So moved.
I heard Councillor Purdy first.
Thank you.
Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, Taylor, thank you for your work. Taylor, out there, thank you for your work on this file. You know, it's interesting where families like this come forward to do these kind of amendments, and this is, the language is foreign to most people, right? You know, the planners understand it. There are people here later on in the agenda that have consultants that come forward and they live this world and understand it. It's very difficult for small business folks that don't do this all the time. So Taylor, thank you for hand-holding them through the process. I appreciate that. You know, the Habib family, as Rodney said, is a huge community family. And, you know, the story that Rodney shared of the Habib family is repeated with thousands of other immigrants to this country, including my own parents growing up in Cape Breton. And so the work ethic, the care of the community, the pride in the community the Habib family have, I've seen it firsthand. And we see it with many, many immigrants, which is interesting, not to get on a soapbox, but right now there's lots of conversation. Should we be allowing more immigrants into our country right now with a housing shortage? And so I'm in favor of continue to allow new Canadians to come into this great country. So we were looking at making some changes to make it enabling more options. It's restricted right now. I assure you, colleagues, that it'll be appropriate, whatever shows up there. I like what you've done, Taylor, in looking at removing anything that has to do with liquor. That will cause no problems. But public offices, personal shops, restaurants, food, grocery, they all appropriate for this community. So I hopefully we have your support, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to support this. When I think about, first of all, I want to thank staff as well before I go into my actual stuff. And I want to say to the Habib family, in particular, Senior Mr. Habib, your smile while your son was talking told me a lot. As he was talking, he was telling the story. And sometimes in this role, we don't get that. And the pride that you were showing and the strength that you were giving to him by that from behind, same as mom and sister. I don't know, it just struck my heart. And I say we don't get that very often, and that really can make a difference. We are all human beings that joined and decided to do this type of work because our hearts wanted to make a difference. And so thank you for touching mine tonight. And I encourage others to do that. You've got a good son there, and I no doubt a daughter as well. And Mom, next time I want you to sit in front. Regarding the actual application, though, that's the important piece that we're talking about tonight. And when I think about, first of all, the space that you have held for so long, the longevity of that in a very popular community. It's a beautiful community that has grown and has evolved and has had infrastructure added to it regularly to be a complete community. You've been part of that. That space has been part of that. And it's not been dormant. It's been grown. It's been built upon. And that's to be applauded. But now more than ever, as we look at the growth that we're going to continue to have, more than ever, we need to make sure our communities do have services and provision of these kinds of amenities so they can be successful and healthy and happy and in their own neighborhood space. And that's what I see is happening here. Some people would potentially challenge what are you going to do and need to know all the detail. But I think the fact that there are no speakers here tonight speaks volumes to the trust and what is about to happen should this pass. I'm happy to support it. Good on you. And I look forward to seeing what you do.
Okay, I'm going to offer just a quick comment from the chair, if no one minds. I would echo Councillor Kent's point about the speakers, because oftentimes for things like this, there would be people in the room expressing concern. The fact that there's no one here tonight from the public, I think, is very much related to the people who actually own and operate this. Clearly, they have community trust, because it's human nature, right? We show up when we have concern about things. If you're fine with something, you tend not to, right? So that's what I'm reading on that tonight. And the only thing that I think it goes to where we're going to with our planning policies with the suburban plan is these folks shouldn't really have had to come to us at all, right? The fact that our planning references TV repair shops kind of says all you need to know about how current and up to date it is. So, hopefully in future you'll enjoy more flexibility as you continue to operate here in this location. So with that, question has been called. All those in favor? Aye. That carries. Thank you very much. All right, so moving along, our next one is the other public hearing, which is the development agreement for 42 Canal Street. So same as the last one, we'll start with a staff presentation. And probably when we get to debate, Councillor Mancini, I'll get you to take the chair. All right.
Good evening. My name is Dean McDougall. I'm a Planner 3 with Development Services, and I'll be providing the staff presentation for Planning Application 2023-00453. The applicant for this case is WM Fairs Architects, and the location is 42 Canal Street in Dartmouth. And the proposal is to develop the lands under the Center 2 zone of the Regional Center Land Use Bylaw. And this would happen through the placement of a development agreement on the property. Site context. So the site is outlined in red on the images shown on the screen. As you can see, it's within the Dartmouth Cove area, which is tucked in behind King's Wharf, and it makes up part of the downtown Dartmouth area. The site itself is located across Canal Street from the Dartmouth Curling Club, and you can see on the right-hand image where the site is located in proximity to Portland Street and Alderney Drive. This is a Google image of the site. You can see the curling club on the right, and then the one-story commercial building that's existing on the site today. And we're standing on Canal Street looking at the site. My colleague Taylor went over this pretty well, so I don't want to be too repetitive here, but I'll quickly talk about the planning policy overview. When a planning application is made, it's often enabled by planning policies, meaning it was envisioned that development would happen here, and rules and guidelines were written to help shape what that development would look like. And so in HRM, we have 3 levels of planning documents that try to achieve just that. So the first is the regional plan, which is 30,000 feet in the air. It looks at all of HRM, and it identifies where population growth and investment of services like transit, piped water, and sewer should occur. And then we have the community plan, which we zoom down a little bit closer and we look at a very specific geographic area. And this plan gets a little bit more detailed about what type of uses can happen where. And then lastly, we have the third layer, which is the most detailed document we have, is the land use bylaw. So this outlines a specific zone and regulations that if you meet, you don't have to require special approval by council. You can just go get a permit and issued from the development officer without any engaging of the public. Similar to my colleague's application, this is a development agreement process outlined on the slide here. We're at the public hearing, and council's decision tonight is appealable. There's a 14-day appeal period. The zoning on the site is Comprehensive Development District 2, and it is designated a future growth node. As I mentioned, the existing use is commercial and office space, and there are several enabling policies in the regional center secondary planning strategy, or the center plan, that'll allow this application to be considered. I do want to quickly touch on future growth nodes. So the properties within the Dartmouth Cove future growth node, and future growth nodes are lands which are identified as having the potential to accommodate significant growth in our community due to the site size, location, and proximity to municipal services. Now, the Dartmouth Cove future growth node, there are specific development agreement criteria and a general built form concept that were established already, and these were created through the public consultation that associated the center plan. back in 2021 and its adoption. So the Dartmouth Cove future growth node policies, they largely stem from the 2012 Dartmouth Cove comprehensive plan that was done, and they seek to establish a new and appealing mixed-use neighborhood with strong relationships to the waterfront, open spaces, trail network, downtown Dartmouth, and adjacent neighborhoods. And this image on the screen here shows what lands make up the Dartmouth Cove future growth node. And so you can see it's divided up into 4 precincts, and each precinct has specific evaluation criteria attached to it to ensure the objectives of the future growth node are met. And it also establishes the densities and building forms that are permitted on each property within the future growth node. So as per the direction of the center plan, the applicant is asking to develop the site under the Center 2 zone of the land use bylaw. And based on the allowed densities within the center plan, this will result in 2 mixed-use buildings, a high-rise building with a FAR of 6.75, and that's the building on the left in that image, which would be about 30 stories, and then a tall mid-rise building with a FAR of floor area ratio, FAR of 3.75, and a max height of 38 meters, or about 12 stories. The agreement also identifies Canal Street as a pedestrian-oriented commercial street, and it requires a pedestrian pathway to be built from Canal Street to Maitland Street, and also includes a requirement for that pathway to be surrounded by landscaped open space. So I mentioned that the applicant is seeking several limited variations to the land use bylaw, and those variations are to the built form requirements for the tall mid-rise building, the 12-story building, and they would increase the max height from 26 meters to 38 meters, as well as increase the dimensions and floor plate area of the tower as shown on the slide. So in exchange for these variations, the development agreement requires the additional landscaped open space be provided along the pedestrian pathway. So this slide helps illustrate what that compromise looks like. So on the left, we have what could be built using the permitted densities and the existing regulations of the Center 2 zone, as we have 3 buildings. And then on the right is how the lands could be developed with the requested variations. So the result is we have a taller building abutting Maitland, which is the building on the right, with a slightly wider tower than what's permitted now, but we have a significant increase in landscape open space. And so staff support these variations as they help achieve the objectives of the Dartmouth Cove future growth node, which includes providing more landscaped open space in an area where it's difficult to obtain additional parkland, while also ensuring that the permitted densities envisioned for this area are maintained. In terms of public engagement feedback, the level of engagement we completed was consultation achieved through a mail-out notification, a website, and an information video. Some stats on that engagement: 363 notifications were mailed out to people in the area. 639 individuals viewed the webpage during the length of the application process. 215 people went online and viewed our information video. And of all the eyes that were on this application, only 4 individuals reached out to me directly to provide any comments on the application. And the concerns that were provided were concerns around the density, additional traffic, and parking. So a quick overview of the elements of the development agreement. As I mentioned, it will require the development to meet the regulations of the land use bylaw, apart from those limited variations that were identified. It requires a density bonusing contribution as per the policies and regulations of the center plan. Provide a pedestrian pathway and abutting landscape open space on the private land. Require the building to be designed to meet future grades of the Petawogan Street, Dundas Street extension, as well as Canal Street and Maitland Street. Non-substantive amendments. So as my colleague outlined, a non-substantive amendment is a change to the agreement which can be made without a formal public hearing. So a development officer or community council could authorize this change by resolution. And the non-substantive amendments proposed in the agreement allow for changes to the grade requirements in the agreement along the streets and transportation reserve. Allow for changes required to address land acquisition along the transportation reserve, and to allow for a request to extend the dates of commencement and completion. So with that, staff recommend that Community Council approve the proposed development agreement, which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in attachment A of the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions of clarification? Councillor Hensby.
Yes, thank you, Dean. Could you clarify in regards to you go back to the diagram of that there.
Mhm.
When I'm looking at that and trying to compare it to the mapping, it seems like the larger building, would that be encroaching upon the Dundas Street corridor? I'm just trying to have a better appreciation of the.
Absolutely. Through Chair to the Councillor, the Dundas Street, Patawogan Street extension, the transportation reserve that's there right now, is in the dotted line below the. Can I use this pointer? It's not showing on the screen though. No. How can my mouse can't get over there? Oh, I can get over there. Okay. If you can see my mouse, can you see yeah. So right here is the transportation reserve. So the land hasn't been acquired yet, but this is where it's identified in the plan. So the applicant is shown on the drawings where the street would come through. So it would be abutting the new street.
Okay, all right. And the mill lane above that would.
Oh, Mill Lane would be off the image. So Canal Street is coming down from like the L and LUB at the top of the screen, coming down the side here.
Yes.
And so the curling club would be just off the screen and Mill Lane would be off the screen as well. Maybe if I go back to here, this is a better image.
Yeah.
So we have our site, the taller building would be located right here where my mouse is. Canal Street coming down, the Patawogan Street extension coming from Alderney, and then through Canal to Maitland, and Mill Lane is right here.
Okay. Would the larger building be one off of Maitland, the corner, on the Maitland side on the right?
The larger building would be where those numbers are largely, right here. That's the 30-story, and then the 12-story would be on this corner,
Okay.
this future street corner.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. Any other questions of clarification?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to touch on one of the concerns that was brought to you by a resident just on the parking. And can you remind me of the ratio of unit per parking spaces, units per?
Through Chair to the Councillor, in the regional center 2 zone, there are no municipal requirements for parking. So it would be whatever the property owner would like to provide. There's no.
Oh, that's in the, because this is in the center. Oh, okay. So, yeah. And how many units of this one again? I can't remember. I didn't write it down.
We don't have, the applicant
don't
might be able to provide
Oh, okay.
that for
Got it.
information. They may have some rough numbers for the number of units.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, I just going to ask quickly. So the extension of Dundas Street, where some of this property falls into that, not the proposal, but would that be something like, are we buying from the applicant, or as part of this whole development, do we as the municipality get that chunk that we need for the street?
The municipality needs to acquire the land from all landowners, so there are additional landowners other than this applicant. And negotiations are happening right now. And the project manager who I spoke to today advised that they're almost concluded and that they hope that street construction is going to commence in 2026. Now, the negotiations about how we acquire the land, I can't speak to. I'm not the project manager on that, but they are, the floor area ratio is accounted for in the acquisition and also in this proposal as well. So
they don't lose their floor area ratio
No,
by by selling land for a public street.
that's right. The floor area ratio goes to the center line of the proposed new street. So properties north and south of that, the floor area ratio gets dumped back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. So now we'll open the public hearing and, I'm in my wrong spot here. No, I'm good. Yeah, so we'll open the public hearing, and so now the next part is the applicant can come forward and to present. And I've got John, is it Dib? Dib? Dib. From WM Ferris. So the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Just takes that screen a little bit.
No problem.
Needs to warm up a bit, hey?
Good evening. My name is John Dibb, and on behalf of WM Ferris Architects, I would like to welcome members of council, staff, and the community to our proposal for a mixed-use development at 42 Canal Street. As mentioned earlier, the proposal is located in the Dartmouth Cove Future Growth Node, which staff has established policies to create a walkable and integrated community that connects to existing parts of the downtown core. Centrally located, the area presents an opportunity to develop a vibrant and mixed-use neighborhood, enhancing the Dartmouth waterfront and providing amenities to the surrounding communities. To put these principles into action, staff have developed a map to guide future proposals, identifying 4 precincts, each with their own unique set of design characteristics. Established within the precincts are provisions for building height and maximum floor area ratio to achieve a desired density within the district. In addition, staff have allocated space for different active pathways throughout the area, such as the Canal Street and Mill Lane Plaza, HRM Street Extension, and public pedestrian pathway. The proposed development is situated on roughly 100,000 square feet of underutilized land on the north side of the Dartmouth Cove area, with the west portion of the site planned for mixed-use high-rise development and mixed-use mid-rise forms to the east. Located near the Canal Street and Mill Lane plazas, as well as along the proposed HRM Street extension, the situating of buildings on site becomes critical in achieving the goals that staff have put into place. By limiting the east portion of the site to a mid-rise form, the total floor area must be captured in 3 buildings, which limits the open space provided, which is why we have requested a variance to capture the total floor area in 2 buildings. By consolidating the floor area on the east side of the site into 1 building, a greater portion of the land is freed up for the proposed pedestrian thoroughfare and other public amenities. The increased open space also provides more separation between existing buildings in the area to align with staff's vision of creating a pedestrian-focused environment, while the configuration of space at grade is now suitable for activities which will be animated with lighting, seating, and different forms of public art. As mentioned, to capture the full FAR allocated for the east portion of the site, a variance is required to exceed the mid-rise form that is identified on map 13. A massing view from the end of the proposed HRM Street extension shows how the proposal steps down towards the existing buildings and residential areas that surround Dartmouth Cove to create a gradual reduction in scale away from Canal Street. From the center of the proposed street extension, the separation between the 2 buildings presents a second access point and corridor for pedestrians to filter through the development and reach the public open space running along the back of the site. Through further detailed design, this space will become animated by a series of commercial uses and landscaping to provide an active open space within the Dartmouth Cove area. While the height of the building on the mid-rise portion of the site is increased to capture the remaining floor area, the large open space that can now be provided reduces its impact on the pedestrian experience. By creating more separation between the proposed design and existing buildings that surround the Dartmouth Cove plan area, the intentions of policies can be expanded upon to create usable open space. Finally, standing where the 3rd building would be, the scale of the space provided by consolidating the floor area for this portion of the site becomes clear. What this creates is less disruption and building footprint in exchange for more open space dedicated to public use and activity, achieved through detailed design by animating the space with different uses, art, and landscaping. thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions of clarification? Councillor Hensby, then we'll go to Councillor Kent after
The
that.
comment about this area here being for public space and public use, would that be considered as parkland and be given to the municipality to be parkland, or does this still be under private ownership?
So that is along the pedestrian thoroughfare that's established on map 13. In terms of the ownership, I don't know if staff can speak to that.
It would be, through your chair to councillor, it would be private ownership. So municipality will not be taking ownership of that pathway or the landscape open space associated with it.
So it's considered to be public, but they own it privately, so could they eventually control access to it if they wanted to?
No, the agreement requires a 3-meter unobstructed pathway through the land, so that cannot be blocked off, so to speak. So that's guaranteed and locked in through the agreement that's there.
Now, if the people living in the buildings and stuff wanted to have a community garden out there, would that be something that the developer would consider possible?
No, through the agreement, it also requires that this space can't be used for any amenity space for either the commercial businesses or the residential uses.
So just a landscaped area?
Yeah.
I assume those slabs be imitations of public art?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kent.
You should stay there, Dean, because I don't know who's going to answer this.
Technically, it's clarifications of the
I know,
developer.
I know. I'm going to ask the developer.
Okay.
Because it's different from what Dean showed. So on the map, on the footprint pieces, slides that you showed,
Yep.
in both cases, building A is showing no height max. That's different from what staff had presented, which showed specific height. Can you explain that to me?
So the way high rise is defined in the land use bylaw, there isn't a maximum height associated with it. So in order to align with the language of the land use bylaw, that portion of the site, because it's dedicated for high rise, we've written no max in that area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, how many floors do you anticipate doing?
Right now, 30.
Okay, right now
Yep.
30. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go to Dean. We have a chance for debate. Thank you.
The lawyer's okay with Dean giving an answer.
Oh, okay, Dean, what does that mean, the disparity?
Sure. So the height is on the tall building.
Yeah.
Is not, it's regulated by the floor area ratio. So that 6.75, they do a calculation of the square footage of the lot, times it by 6.75, and you get how much square footage of building you can have. Yes, and then there's requirements on top of that, that the tower portion can only be 750 square feet and floor plate. And then also the dimensions can be 27 by 27. So on top of the floor area ratio calculation, we have requirements on the form that help cap the height.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Although it says no max height, there is another mechanism to make
That's
sure that
correct.
it has a max.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. You have a question,
I
Councillor
do.
Birdie? Go
Yep.
ahead.
So thank you for this. So and one question for you too, if our solicitor's okay with that. But since you're here anyway, but I'm wondering if you could tell me how many units in this whole development. I don't remember if it was in I didn't print it off and I didn't write it down. So I want to know how many units we're talking about and what is the implication of the new amendment package coming to us with the Housing Accelerator Fund information, and one of the options is to increase the height allowance to 40 stories. And so if he has his 30 stories, would he come back for an amendment on that? Like how would that work? Because I'm sure you'd want to do 40 if you could do 40.
I'll answer the first part. Right now, we're between 350 and 400 units.
Okay.
And that's just depending on the mix that ultimately comes out of it. And for the second part of your question, as Dean mentioned, the floor area itself isn't changing as part of the proposed amendments. So with the building form that we have, we would still be limited to the same height because the floor
Because of that,
area is
right?
remaining the same.
Okay, okay. And do you have an approximate number of parking spaces that you are considering for
Yeah.
this?
Right now, we're at a ratio of 0.7 per unit, but
Okay,
that
that's-
ultimately is market driven. So
Of course,
yeah.
of course.
So
Okay, well, I guess you weren't needed there, Dean. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So we'll now move to members of the public, and I do have a speakers list for this one with one name on it. This would be Kathy Delazal. Oh, you might have mixed it up maybe with yeah, this happens every public hearing. It's signing up for speakers rather than signing in to attend. Yeah, that's no problem. You are very far from the first one to make that error. Would anybody, that's the only one on the list. So now I'll call 3 times to see if there's anyone who'd like to speak to this in attendance tonight who didn't sign up. Would anyone like to speak to this? Would anybody like to address council on this? Third and final call. Okay. All right. All those in favor? Aye. So the applicant, I guess I skipped that. There was no points raised, so it's the same situation as last time. Nothing for anyone to address. Yeah, why don't you come take it over?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take over the chair. Would you like to put the motion on the floor, Councillor Austin?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council 1 approve the proposed development agreement, which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated November 20th, 2023, and 2, require the development agreement be signed by the property owner within 120 days or any extension thereof granted by council on request of the property owner from the date of final approval by council and any other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, whichever is later. Otherwise, the approval will be void and obligations arising here under shall be at an end.
Second by Councillor Kent. Councillor Austin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to support this. This is very much in keeping with the Dartmouth Cove plan that was done a number of years ago and then was carried into the center plan. In that plan, I remember sitting in those sessions actually. You know, wasn't a councillor then, was a interested resident, and you know, the feedback in that was to put the highest density in the middle of the site, give the water a little bit of space and give Portland a little bit of space. And so you, by applying the highest density zoning, the CEN on that centerpiece and putting the most density there, that's very much in keeping with all that work and envisioning that happened. And, you know, Dartmouth Cove is, you know, it's an integral future part of downtown Dartmouth, and it has so much potential, and these are the kind of projects we need to have happen there. It is a little bit weird, right? Like I still find myself, you know, when you get these development agreement applications looking for the pretty building, right? Completed and done, but you know, that's not the way we're doing things now with the center plan in the future growth nodes. It's all about using the development agreement to set the zoning of the area, and then when they apply, they have to meet all our design requirements. And I think when I look around the community, I think for the most part, that's been working quite well. You look up on Portland Street with the Moffats, a building that was built with center plan design criteria, and it's beautiful. They did a fantastic job of it. It's good street interface, so I have faith that what will turn out here will be just as good, and I think it will be an asset to the area. I did want to say just you know, on parking, it is one that everyone always talks about, concerns about, but that too, we're 4 years into center plan now, and developments proceeding in Dartmouth and Halifax without parking requirements. And I don't think we've had any developments include no parking. You could, if you think you can sell the units, but letting the market choose that, you prevent the overbuilding, and every parking space that's built that you don't actually need is just adding to the cost, whether it's condos to the sticker price or to the rental cost, because it's, digging those underground holes and pouring that cement isn't free. So I don't have concern about that, especially in a spot like downtown Dartmouth, where we know you just have to look at the StatScan data for the area. You're going to have a lot of people are going to bike, a lot of people are going to walk, and a lot of people are going to use the ferry and take the transit because it's part of the community that has scads of options that are available to not use a car. There'll still be cars, but it's going to be a heck of a lot different than, for example, development out in Councillor Purdy's area where 95% of all the trips are going to be by car. In the core, it's different. So I think the parking requirement piece, I'm comfortable with that based on everything we've seen so far. So colleagues, I would urge you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Councillor Hensby, you have the floor.
Perhaps the chair can just clarify, why is it this community council, not the regional center community council? Who would it not fall under that jurisdiction as well?
I think that's maybe a question for staff. Maggie, would you like to come forward on that? Yeah. Ms. Holm, welcome. Yep.
Good evening, Community Council Chair and the community that's here. My name is Maggie Holm. I'm the Principal Planner for the Urban Enabled Applications Group with Current Planning. I'm working on memory here, but when the Regional Center came into place, I believe it was a discussion that was had with the community councils that they wish to retain authority over the developments that were happening in their own communities. So rather than having the Regional Center Community Council decide on agreements that were in Dartmouth or that were in Cole Harbour or that were in Halifax, the community councils wanted to retain the ability to make decisions that were directly affecting their own communities. And so the things that go to the Regional Center are policy changes, so the larger things, and then the things that are directly impacting the smaller communities are still going to those community councils rather than the Regional Center Community Council, if that makes sense.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Holm. Appreciate it. Councillor, you good with that? Any other questions? I'll go to you second, Councillor Austin. Nobody else? All right. If I may, just a few comments from this seat. It's actually quite nice to be here talking about a 30-story building and not have a whole bunch of opposition to it, right? And so it's a perfect spot for this. It really is. All the things that you mentioned, Councillor Austin, and being on the transit, being in the downtown, being near the ferry, and the parking. This is the transition time. This is new stuff, so we're all a little cautious about the parking. Do we have enough space? But as the councillor stated, the councillor of the area, we're going to see more people moving to this building that may choose to walk and may use the bike. So I think very good. It's a perfect spot. So I fully support it. See no other question. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Hesby, second time.
My first impression when I saw the rendition there, my first impression was Laurel and Hardy. Tall, skinny versus the short, fat. So they might get nicknames in the building. So,
and for some of our staff who doesn't know what he's talking about, I'll fill you in later on because he's much older than many of you, so that's all right. So, seeing no other questions, someone call for the question. Questions been called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye. That motion is carried. Thank you to staff. Councillor Austin, I return the chair to you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I appreciate it. Okay, so moving along, correspondence, petitions and delegation. Ms. Clerk?
Chair Austin, there was no correspondence received for this meeting.
Thank you. Any petitions from members of council tonight? None. We have no presentations. Public participation. So this is your chance to speak to us on any matter that is, anything going on in the community for up to 5 minutes. So would anyone like to address community council tonight? Please come forward, state your name and your community, and you'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Ralph Jacobs, and I'm with the Dartmouth Curling Club. That's better. With Ralph Jacob with the Dartmouth Curling Club. We're supportive of developments like this in the area, but we have a couple of factors that are having a negative impact on our club and its survival in that area. And parking is one of them. We depend on street parking and parking in the local area, and that's gradually disappearing from our environment. Some of it's due to lots that we're currently using for parking that are going to be developed. Some of it is the street extensions and changes to elevations on the streets that are going to have an impact on street parking in our area. And different than living in that area, we have people, 200 to 400 people per day coming into our building, and probably at least 75% are traveling by car. So we do have that parking issue. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was the street level changes that are proposed to happen to Canal Street and the new Dundas extension. They are going to leave the curling club lot in a bit of a pool area. Will be lower than the street level on both sides and lower than the waterway and the park area on Mill Street. So we're being sort of drowned slightly by the changes that are proposed. And we really weren't aware of the significant elevation changes that were going to happen with the street extension. And it's sort of been a revelation to us, to us over the last couple of months. So I just wanted to make councillors aware of some of these issues and how they're affecting the curling club where it's currently located. We're looking at possible relocation options, but they are very expensive solutions to rebuild a curling club in this day and age. Our property value is increasing significantly with these developments, but it's probably only able to fund maybe a quarter of the cost of a new rink development. Anyway, I just wanted to make those points so the council was aware of those issues that we're facing. Any questions?
It's not a back and forth with public participation, but I know there's some questions here, so perhaps we can follow up offline.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to us tonight? Please come forward. And your name and your community, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Paul Clark.
You turn the light on. Just press the button and the light will.
There we go, button press, green light. Hi, I'm Paul Clark. I'm a resident. I wasn't speaking planning, talking tonight, but I will. Mr. Chair, councilors. Mr. Chair, you just listed off a series of transportation options. And you're right, they are there. My wife and I don't have a vehicle. And we stumbled onto a funny story, but I won't tell you now. We stumbled onto car sharing. And that is taken off. It's growing. I'm not advertising for the company. But it's not just people without a vehicle. It's people who have one vehicle and they need a second one. Stories are there. So I have no shares in the company. I'm just saying it should be recognized as one option for transportation. The other item I wanted to bring up, I've spoken to all of you except for Councillor Kent about an email I sent. And I'm sitting there and thinking, oh, I addressed them the wrong way. I said hello by your first names, and that shouldn't have happened. I should have been more respectful. That's it. I enjoyed this speaking. This is new to me. I hadn't at this the first council meeting, regional council meeting I've attended. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And if you need to take car share home, there's 2 sitting over there on the lot, according to the app right now. So. Would anyone else like to address us here tonight? Would anybody else like to speak tonight? Third and final call. Okay, thank you, everybody. So the next thing is information items brought forward. We have none. So that brings us to our next staff, our staff reports, 14.1.1. This is the development agreement for 8990 Highway 7, head of Jador. So this would be a Councillor Hensby. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll put the motion on the floor that the Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council give notice. A motion to consider the proposed development agreement set on attachment A of the staff report dated January 17, 2024, to allow for commercial building, grocery store that exceeds 5,000 square feet and schedule a public hearing.
Second.
Second by Councillor Kent. Councillor Hensby.
It's long overdue. The quicker we can get it done, the faster, because people are anxious to see a new store to replace the old Sobeys there in Hedgedore. So this would be good to see.
We can maybe keep that for debate in next month. Question has been called. All those in favor? Aye. So that carries unanimously.
Any idea of the scheduling?
Ms. Clerk, do we
I
know?
believe this, the public hearing will be scheduled at the April meeting.
April, okay, thank you.
Would we be going out to Jador for that one? We typically will try and do things like that. We can't. That's too bad. Okay, the next one then, 14.1.2, development agreement for 541 Pleasant Street. I think this would be Councillor Kent.
It is, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council give notice of motion to consider the proposed development agreement as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated January 31st, 2024, to construct a multi-use, multi-unit building and schedule a public hearing. So moved.
Second by Councillor Purdy. Councillor Kent.
No, I don't have anything that I need to offer today. We'll just put this through the process.
Sounds good. Question has been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries. Next up, 14.1.3, development agreement for an expansion to an existing commercial building at 667 Highway 7 Westfall. This would be Gateway, which would be Councillor Purdy.
Yeah, thank you. So I move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council give notice of motion to consider the proposed development agreement as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated February 12th, 2024, to allow an expansion to an existing commercial building at 667 Highway 7 Westfall and schedule a public hearing. So moved.
Seconded by Councillor Hensby. Councillor Purdy?
Yeah, well, we all know and love Gateway. I mean, it's not only beneficial to the community, but it really is an essential service. They provide low prices, reasonable prices, and they have for years. They are a staple in Coal Harbour, and we're just very thankful to have them there. So, yeah. What's that?
We're not supposed to take a position.
It's probably for next
I'm
week.
not. Well, this is just about Gateway in general. This isn't about the
Oh,
expansion.
okay.
This is just.
We're not to read
no.
it in a position to your statements.
Oh yeah, no. Just we all just know and love Gateway. But yeah, so we will move this on to the public hearing portion and see how that goes. Awesome.
There you go. We
save,
jumped the
yes.
gun too early
Good
on you,
save, Councillor
Councillor.
Purdy.
Okay, question
Nothing
has
about
been
the
called.
expansion. Nothing
All
about the-
those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? That carries. All right, motions, we have none. There's no in cameras. We have no added item. Any notices of motion tonight, colleagues? Any notices of motion? None. So the date of our next meeting will be April 4th, and I imagine we'll have a public hearing or two to conduct on that day based on two. April, okay. So that wraps up tonight. I would take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Purdy, we are so adjourned. Thank you, everybody.